Cars are on the grid for the series production touring cars. 5 laps, 11.25 miles. Pole position, car number 40 is Nick Petrelli in a Holden Monaro GTS 350. Alongside him, car number 39 is another Holden Monaro GTS driven by Seb Petralia. And in the second row, car number 46, Brian Schofields Morris Cooper S. And alongside Schofield is car number 28, Barry Jones, also driving a Morris Cooper S. This looks like being a good race. 5 laps, 11.25 miles. Here's Graham Howard.
Thank you, Bert Oliver. Well, it's going to be an interesting race, I think, just to watch Petrelli. He's got the best part of 3 seconds advantage over, 2 seconds advantage over Tucky on the outside of the front row of the grid. Tucky in the very gaudily painted Monaro 350. But Petrelli's somewhat more simply painted car is considerably faster. He seems to have the drop on Tucky already and leads as they go into paddock at the end of the start straight for the first time. And barging through very strongly there would have to be Bill Warner. Oh no, it'll be Doug Hawkins who'd be coming through there fairly strongly in the field now, led by the 350 Moneros. Storms down towards Homestead, and we can see the big bulk of Bill Warner's 327 Monero kicking minis aside as they run towards Homestead on the first lap. And Petralia clearing away with the race already, goes under Dunlop Bridge for the first time, down into the braking area of Creek. Tucky behind him and then Hawkins, and these 3 big Holdens being driven very hard are going to run away with the race, I'd say. Tucky seeming to go a little wide there as he came out from Creek, and it's a slip that will benefit Petrelli, even if it doesn't do Tucky any good. And Petrelli, who's not had the best of luck with his Holdens over the years, looks like he might be winning himself a reasonable race and a reasonable amount of prize money. You can see him burning rubber off the outside front wheel as he comes across the crossing down round the top of the lake and heading towards the very tricky compound left-handers at the causeway. And Petrelli seems to have the race in the bag at the moment, which is perhaps stretching his luck a little. And through he comes still with Tucky in third, still with Hawkins behind him. The first of the minis then coming through. Warner not seeming to be able to make much impression on the minis that are ahead of him because these are fairly quick ones. But the rest of the field still very tightly bunched together, and a little bit of enterprising motoring from a mini there. He's going to get squeezed off for sure. He must have gone up the beveled edge near the flag marshal's barrier. And the field still coming through with the leader, Petrelli, storming out slightly sideways from Ledger and coming past the pits, looking completely in command. Let's just keep our fingers crossed for Petrelli. He's a very hard trying man. He wants to win motor races, and he certainly works at it. Well, if there's anything that's going to be a problem for Petrelli, I feel it's probably going to be his own concentration. At this stage, he's working very hard, and yet it is pretty clear that he's got a margin on the rest of the field. It would perhaps be in his own interest to back off a little, but it's obvious that Petrelli is not going to, not at this stage. Perhaps he wants a little more margin, and you can see already with an inside wheel in the air as he goes into the first left-hander of the S's that he's not going very slowly at all. It must be a rather tense feeling, I think, for a hopeful driver to find himself comfortably in the lead in a big race. He's certainly not backing off at all. Locking front wheel from Petrelli. This is an indication of just how busily he's working, and you'll see there that his entry line onto the causeway was not perhaps the ideal, and he ran a little wide, and there's been a change in position. No correction, it's still the same. Still Tucky leads from Hawkins, and still with those 2 minis tucked in behind him. More minis yet. Bill Warner unable, I think, to make much impression on the minis in front of him with his 327, a somewhat slower version of the Monero compared to the 350s. And you could just see coming across the causeway Bob Forbes in the first of the other motor cars, the Fiat 125. Petrelli now across the finish line for the second time, hacking and chopping his way around paddock, using a fair amount of lock to keep this basically understeering car pointed where he wants it. You'll notice here he makes quite an S out of the western crossing and the approach to the Homestead corner. But he's building up a very useful lead. In fact, he could even at this stage make a little slip and recover and still be leading. Well, now Creek here into the third lap. He's reached approximately half distance in his race. Again, evidence of a locking wheel as he peels off for the corner. Moneros are not a small car, they're not light to steer, and you'll see that Petrilli there is well anchored in his seat and using a lot of muscle to point the car where he wants it. He's coming out from the S's now, clipping that little beveled curb on the inside and heading towards the section of the course known as the Northern Crossing, where the road crosses a set of wooden slats rather like a bridge which is laid over the grass horse race track. He was on a rather unique line there across the Northern Crossing on that lap. Petrilli is not really noted as being a copybook driver. He drives with heart rather than with a slide rule. You can see that he's all heart. He's got almost terminal understeer there. Has to whip it off very quickly when the car finally comes straight. And again, locking an inside front wheel, this time at polo. Petrilli really working at his motor racing. He'll be probably 2 or 3 pounds lighter from perspiration after this race is over. Now through the long sweeper at Ledger. You can see a pit board being quickly hauled in, and he's got see now the emptiness of pit straight. This is the measure of the lead that he's got over the remainder of the field. Coming into sight now the first duelists of the race, Bill Tuckey and Doug Hawkins. Tuckey, well known as a very talented freelance journalist, formerly editor of several national and Australian motoring magazines. And Petrilli, who's just a boy from the western suburbs, running away from them all, down Hume Straight on his 4th lap, under Dunlop Bridge, and you can see the size of the spectators banked up there. There's been marvellous traffic jams outside Warwick Farm today. And there he's using all the road and needing it, coming out from Creek on a 5th variation of the possible lines through there that he's demonstrated so far this morning. Petrilli, a little intense man, dark skin, very involved in his motor racing. And again, you can see the amount of lock he needs to point the car onto the Northern Crossing, and the way that this 2500 weight Monero leaps and crashes across the wooden boards that cover the horse race track. He's a little more gentle this time because he doesn't block a front wheel and comes on quite tidily onto the causeway. And we've got a note that Alan Cameron's Cooper S has come off the road at Creek. This will be the first but not the last for the day. Coming into view now, second place man Bill Tuckey. He'll have to look a long way ahead before he can find the leader, but he has to look very far behind to find his constant shadow, Doug Hawkins. Petrilli still getting stuck into it, although I think now he's tempering his ardour with a little discretion. He's got to survive this lap, and he's got it made. We'll just look it up, see if we can find the amount of prize money that he's likely to win, but this will pay for Petrilli's tyres and then some, I'd say. He's winning this 5 lap at a day. You can see that the Monero, being driven by a guy who's had a fair amount of experience, is not exactly a precise car to drive at this speed. There's a fair amount of navigation involved, as well as steering. They're large cars, relatively softly sprung. Compared to a pure racing car, they're a somewhat different proposition altogether. A little tidier that time for Petrilli. He's got to survive about another 1.5 miles of almost continuous turns, and he's got it made. Petrilli left in 52.8 this morning, which would be quite a respectable time for the 34-lap series production big money event. But I'd imagine he's running in this event because he did not contest the race in Queensland, nor does he plan to go to Victoria. Well, if there is a Petrilli fan club, and I think he might deserve it, I think they're going to have a happy day today. Petrilli there on what is around about the classic line, and see the inside front wheel lifting as he goes through the little ripples on the inside at the exit from Causeway. He's driving particularly hard. I think we'll find that he's not really backed off very much at all. The initial tension is abated. This is why he's a little tidier. And he's got the final corner at Ledger ahead of him. Pouring it into Ledger. He's got an enormous lead at this juncture. In fact, he's very nearly lapped the tail-end car in the race. And here comes second and third place men, Tucky and Hawkins.
Official placings. First car number 40, a Holden Monaro GTS 350, driven by Nick Petrelli. Second car number 39, a Holden Monaro GTS 350, driven by Seb Petralia. And third car number 53, another Holden Monaro GTS 350, driven by Douglas Hawkins.